All right, well, let's get started. So a little bit about OPTEX, just a quick word. We are a global company. Most of you know of us. We're kind of a household name in the industry, but not too many people know that we're global. In fact, we have locations in 12 countries that supply products and services to about 80 countries around the world. In fact, if you are tuning in from areas outside of the US or outside of the Americas, I've listed our websites for our particular regions of the world, EMEA and Asia, Japan. Please take note of those websites because I encourage you to go there to get additional information on our products and our offerings, as well as to locate your OPTEX regional sales representative for your area that you're based in. And that person will be able to address any questions and help you with designs, quotes, whatever you need from OPTEX. All right. Well, now I want to go ahead and tell you about how we can expand your reach with this wireless technology, how you can go beyond the confines of a particular area and expand that area by using these line of sensors that I'm going to be telling you about. The OPTEX iSeries has a full line of indoor and outdoor wireless detectors that require no trenching or running wire for power. And the advantages of these battery-powered and wireless solutions are numerous. I'm going to list a few here. The ability to deliver quicker and less expensive installs when you factor out trenching and wiring. And it's just proven, and those of you who have experience working with both hardwired and wireless sensors know this to be true, that when you factor in the cable and the trenching and even permitting that may be required, oftentimes it could even tank a job because of that. So looking at the little chart that we have there, when you compare the two technologies, particularly the further you go out from the area that you're trying to cover and expanding your reach, the cost savings is dramatic. Secondly, using this technology allows for installs in areas where power is not available. Rooftops, remote areas, construction sites, just to name a few. And this technology provides flexible solutions in changing site environments, like construction sites, for example. And very easy to quickly add additional sensors as needed. You just take the sensor and install it, no cable to pull. And no worries about backhoes and cable cuts because there's no cable to cut. So these are just some of the many advantages of going with wireless and battery-powered solutions. At the heart of these sensors, of these devices that I'm going to present to you, is the Inovonics EN1941 transmitter. We have photos of the transmitter here. The photo on the bottom left is from a photoelectric beam. You can kind of see the transmitter there on the left on the card, and on the right, you can see it, a frontal view of it inside the PIR, passive infrared sensor. This little transmitter has all of the frequency band selection pins on there, all the inputs and outputs that wire right into the sensor, and the built-in antenna to transmit the sensor notification back to an alarm panel. This transmitter, along with the batteries, are included with our entire iSeries line. That's included and installed at our factory. Tying it all together in terms of the topology, you have these EN1941 transmitter-enabled devices, the sensors, that are transmitting the notifications back to the panel, but they take this path. They go through a repeater, and the repeater that we specify in a lot of our designs is the EN5040T repeater from Inovonics. It's a tremendous repeater. It can take a signal back quite a ways, line of sight. We recommend this typically for large job sites or where you have a lot of obstructions, a lot of buildings. We'll often recommend at least one, if not more, repeaters. And then that signal is then boosted from the repeater to a receiver, a universal receiver. We have two models listed here, the EN4232 and the 4216. These are 32 and 16 zone receivers, respectively. They are hardwired into a control panel or part of a standalone wireless application. What I love about the universal receivers is that they can work with any panel out there. So what's good about that, if you're doing a takeover or if you have to replace the panel down the road, no problem, because you have a universal receiver in place, so you're good to go. No need to mess with proprietary receivers or proprietary transmission equipment. Now, a quick word about PIR technology, passive infrared and active infrared sensors. This session is not meant to do a deep dive on these technologies, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And some of you may be new to the industry, so it's worth doing a quick overview of this. PIRs, it stands for passive infrared. It measures infrared light radiating from objects, animated objects like humans and animals, for example, in the field of view of the sensor. So we use that term field of view, much like cameras that have a field of view and look for things in the sensor field. A PIR sensor's job is to monitor for human-sized mass of infrared energy moving through a detection area. And the PIR sensor, PIRs by definition are single-ended devices. They receive that infrared energy from objects. So there's no reflective device or opposing unit like you have with photoelectric beams that I'll talk about in a moment. Now, a lot of our drawings and illustrations that you see in our brochures and in our manuals will look something like this. That's how we depict the sensor area for the various sensors that we have. Regarding photoelectric beams, that utilizes active infrared technology, or AIR for short. These devices utilize a transmitter unit and a receiver unit. So photo beams come in pairs. And what happens with the device, with this pair of devices, is they transmit invisible, rapidly pulsing infrared light to the receiving device. So it looks something like this. You have a receiving device and a transmitter device. They work together in pairs to create essentially what you're seeing as a trip line of active infrared. And when the infrared beam is interrupted, whether it be one beam, two beams, or as you see depicted here, our quad beam offering, where you have 4 discrete beams going across, when that beam is interrupted by an individual, then the system goes into alarm. An alarm is triggered at that point. It's a very simple technology, but very, very effective. A little bit about the batteries, because we do get a lot of questions about power. And the batteries that we utilize in these sensors for the PIRs are typically 9-volt DC batteries or 3.6 volt. They can be either alkaline or lithium. And the battery life on these batteries with our sensors are tremendous, anywhere from 3 years to 10 years, depending on the battery you're using. And also, we base these estimates on what we call alarm output activation intervals. It's kind of a mouthful. And typically we have 2 settings on most of our sensors, 5 seconds or 120 seconds. And what that refers to is where the sensor goes back into being armed again. So the longer the delay for that, 120 seconds, which is typically our default, you're going to get longer battery life. For photo beams, the batteries that we use there are tremendous. I can't speak for other competitors of ours, but we have gone with the SAFT LSH20 lithium batteries. These are remarkable D-cell batteries that will last anywhere from 4 to 10 years, depending on how many batteries you're using in these photo beams. And I'll explain that further as we talk about photo beams. And just real quick there, you see on the bottom left a part number key. Most of you who work with OPTEX are familiar with our part numbers, can probably recite them by heart. But I did want you to be aware that all of those letters mean something. When they're all together, like the RDAMI, or affectionately known as RDAMI, R means wireless, D dual tech, which includes the PIR technology, as well as microwave technology. That's an enhanced technology in the sensor, which helps to reduce those false alarms and missed alarms. And also anti-masking, AM stands for that, and that's technology that is used to detect any type of sabotage of the sensor, even when it's unarmed. And a lowercase I, wherever you see that lowercase I at the end of our part numbers, you know it's part of our iSeries family. By the way, keep those questions coming in and comments through the chat. We're going to get to those at the end of the session, I promise. What you're looking at here is our full lineup of our indoor and outdoor passive infrared PIR sensors. All of these sensors are outdoor rated except for the CX702RI and the EX35RI. Those 2 are indoor sensors, not to be used outdoors, but they're really great, robust sensors for indoor detection. All of these sensors can be used indoors, but the outdoor ones are rated either at IP55 or higher for outdoor use. And we have several at the bottom there, the QxiRTI, VXS, and WXI series, that also have that dual tech capability, as you see by the letter D there. Our photoelectric beam lineup looks like this. We have the two models on the left. Those are twin beams where you have two discrete active infrared beams that go across. Those come in the models 100 and 200 TFRI. Now these numbers, I should explain, that you see within the part number, those denote the distance between the transmit beam and the receive beam in feet outdoors. So for an outdoor application, the two on the left can go 100 feet or 200 feet, the one in the middle, 350, and the two on the right, 100 and 200. You can effectively double those numbers for indoor applications. And photo beams, some of you may not be aware, are used quite extensively in indoor applications, particularly with warehouses. And you can just double that distance. So the SL350QFRI can go 700 feet indoors. The photo beams on the right, we just introduced about a year ago. Some of you may not be familiar with the TNR iSeries. These are hybrid beams. We call them hybrids because they can use hardwire or wireless or a combination thereof. Now, just to round out our iSeries offering, most of you, again, who've been in the business for a while are familiar with our Redwall line of long-range outdoor volumetric PIRs. These have been purpose-built for outdoor applications to drive cameras. And you see a photo there on the bottom left where it's tied in with a PTZ. We send commands back to a VMS or to the camera directly to be able to drive that camera to a particular area of interest. These sensors are remarkable in terms of the range that they can cover. As you can see, we have three models there, and you see the diagrams that show how far they can go out. The number in parentheses is in feet. The number outside that is in meters. So you're looking at devices that can go up to 40 meters long and up to 10 meters wide, or 20 meters wide in the case of the 3020 model. So taking all of these sensors, this whole iSeries lineup that I just presented to you, we can tie all of these together with the Innovonics infrastructure using the repeater and the receiver, tying that back into your panel or PC application. Seamless, smooth, and easy. Easy to add any of these devices at any time. And the applications, folks, is just breathtaking in terms of the coverage. Any vertical market, any type of application, indoor, outdoor, commercial, residential, you name it. The breadth and depth of these sensors in terms of how they can cover areas of interest is remarkable. You can put them literally anywhere. And again, with no wires and trenching to restrict you in doing that. We're going to cover some applications in particular. And by doing that, I'm going to focus on a handful of some of our more unique but very popular sensors that we've introduced in the last several years. The first one being the FTN Ramy RMrami. This is a great little sensor. It's very small, but it's very effective. You can cover up to 16.4 feet or 6.6 feet. You just simply open the box and switch the lens, flip it over, and you can adjust the detection ranges. I won't go through all the features, but a few I highlighted here. Has 190-degree horizontal rotation with a built-in mounting bracket, so it's easy to just mount it somewhere and then point it to the direction that you need. It has dual PIR detectors, and this allows for enhanced pet tolerance. You can see some illustrations we have there in the bottom. If you're a small animal or a small to medium-sized dog, for example, you're going to be unable to cover both of those sensor windows. The device will only go into alarm if both sensor windows are covered. So even a vehicle going by would probably only hit that top window, but not the bottom. But an individual going across that sensor would likely hit both. So this is a great sensor for protecting windows, gates, entryways, outbuildings, roll-up doors. In fact, here's a couple of examples for you. The picture on the left, this homeowner chose to have these installed. Again, these are low-mounted sensors, 2 to 4 feet off the ground. Chose to install these on either side of their door leading out to their patio, so they can detect if an individual is coming to that door to try to open it. They have a patio. I believe the depth of the patio is around 7 feet, 8 feet. So beyond that, they have deer on their property. They don't want to pick up the deer. So they have the 6.7 foot setting on these units. And it's very effective, and they don't get the nuisance alarms from the deer. The photo on the right shows a garage door where you see the unit back there on the mullion that is protecting the garage door from anybody approaching that door, or if the door is open, and many people like to leave their garage door open, maybe cool down the home. This way they can rest easy because the sensor will pick up anyone trying to move into the garage, or they just might want situational awareness of a vehicle going in or out of that garage. This unit, by the way, was featured in a news story, CBS 2 in Miami, a few years back. We may have the video posted on our website, or please email me and I think I can find a link to it. But this sensor was used in an application similar to this garage one you see on the left, where a homeowner was notified of an intruder and came down and was able to stop the intruder and hold them while the police were on their way. They didn't mention OPTEX by name, but they clearly showed our FTN sensor there in that news clip several times. So great PR there for OPTEX. Here's some other application scenarios to show you in my illustration form. As you can see, this sensor is great and it can work anywhere and it's very cost effective. All right, moving on. Going from the FTN now to a high mount sensor. This is one that, again, those of you who've been in the industry for a while are very familiar with, the venerable HX series. It comes in a 40-foot and 80-foot option. These are great, hardy, rugged outdoor detectors that work fantastically. The mounting height is anywhere from 8 to 10 feet. It has a feature called vegetation sway analysis logic. That sounds really fancy, but what it does is it actually factors out any vegetation sway in the background. So trees, shrubs, not a problem. We can ignore all that and just look for humans. And also, it comes with a bracket, both models, 180-degree angle adjustable bracket with a hood to help mitigate sunshine focused on the lens. Here's an application photo. We have an end user here who wants to protect the building and that open area you see on the right. So they've gone with the 80 model, where they're creating vertical curtains in front of that building and that open area, so anybody trying to approach those areas would be detected. And they just took advantage of a light pole or a telephone pole that was already there on site. They didn't have to install any particular poles or posts to be able to mount these. They just literally screw them into this pole and learn it into the panel, and away they go. Now, this is an exciting new product that we just introduced about a month and a half ago, the QxiRTI. What I love about this sensor is it's not only dual tech, that's standard with the microwave component, but it also is adjustable in terms of being high or low mount. So you have that option. You can mount it any way you need to. And the low mount allows you to create what we call a pet alley, where you have an area underneath the sensor field, because it kind of goes out horizontally, if you will, and there's an area underneath so that any animals going underneath will not be detected. Now I want to talk to you about the Shield series. This is an exciting new series that OPTEX introduced, which includes a number of sensors, and 3 of them happen to be iSeries models. And I will be presenting 2 of these 3 for you. What we like to say is they're reliable, convenient, and secure. And these were really designed with you integrators in mind, particularly for installation. And let me show you why. 2 features in particular that are really exciting. One we call Blue Touch, where when you open the case and look inside the sensor, all of the areas that your installers will need to be concerned with to manipulate, settings, so forth, are all colored in blue. So it makes it really easy, takes the guesswork out of it. When you look at these photos here, you can see that, especially if you're a new installer, you're looking at that, go, wow, look at all this stuff. Well, you don't have to worry, because you're just going to be touching the areas that are in blue. And we always recommend going through our manual for all our products, going through the manuals, or consulting with OPTEX if you need support there. We also include a level indicator built into the unit. Makes it easy to keep the sensor installed proper and true. And our WXS model, which I'm going to touch on, has a day-night feature, which is really cool for being able to manipulate lights and turning lights on when the ambient lighting is low. So with this series, I want to present 2 exciting models. This is probably my favorite sensor of all, the BXS Ramy RMrami. This is a boundary sensor, and what it does is it can protect a wall, and you see we have a picture illustration there. I'm going to show you some real live photos in a moment, but it can cover an area of 80 feet, 40 feet on each side of the detector. So imagine like two of those FTN sensors put back to back. We call it quad PIR technology, the last bullet there, because it has those two sensor windows, but on each side of the unit. So you have one unit which effectively acts like two of those FTN units and covers a longer area. But what's really exciting is that second one I've highlighted, the 5 independent detection ranges. You can actually set each side to be different than the other. So for example, that illustration there where you see two windows on the right of the sensor, let's say that distance is only about 25 or 24 feet. You can adjust a selector switch inside the sensor to get 24 feet, but on the left side, it may go 40 feet and you can adjust that to 40. So you're not getting a coverage area going beyond the area of interest that you're trying to protect, again, with the goal of reducing false alarms and nuisance alarms. Here's an example of the BXS at a storefront of, say, a strip mall, where the owner here of the strip mall is trying to protect the tenants' windows and doors from any kind of intrusion there, but also ignoring any people walking along on either the parking lot or the walkway or any vehicles approaching. We're just concerned with the building in this application. So the BXS is a perfect fit for that. Another example would be a home, where the homeowner might have wildlife, as in that other example I mentioned with deer on the property. They don't want the alarm, the sensor going off in every instance, just if someone is getting close to the home itself. Here's a real world application. This happens to be a used car dealership in the Houston area, where you can see the sensor mounted on to a light pole. Again, there's no wires, it's wireless and battery powered, but they're just utilizing the light pole that happens to be there and covering that whole span of the vehicles, I believe utilizing the maximum extent, which is 40 feet on each side. So no one's getting near those vehicles without them knowing about it, because the BXS will pick that up. All right, and my second unit of the Shield series I want to present is the WXS. Comes in the Ramy or RMrami versions. And this is also an outdoor sensor, but it also has, as in the QxiRTI, the ability to be either low mount or high mount. So you have that flexibility there for deployment. Now, similar to the BXS I just presented to you, it does cover that 80-foot span along the wall, but it projects out 40 feet. So a 40-foot radius with two zones. And those zones are independent of each other. One can be smaller than the other. You may need to do that if, let's say, looking at the top illustration there, photo there, if you look in the orange area, let's say there was more shrubs or trees, you might want to shorten that distance to say as short as 8 feet, and the other side could be up to 40 feet. So you have that flexibility to sort of adjust it to the site conditions. WXS, a great, exciting new sensor. All right, so let's move from PIRs to AIR or photoelectric beams. I'm just going to present to you one of the models. That's our flagship model, the SL350QFR. This is our best seller. This is a tremendous photo beam model. It has excellent battery life, as I mentioned earlier. So you see in the photo there, the battery compartment, those are those SAFT LSH20 D-cell lithium batteries. It does come from the factory, from our factory, with 2 batteries in each the receiver and transmitter side of the beam pair. You have the option of installing 2 additional batteries, which will give you longer life even. So with 2 batteries, we're looking at about 4 to 6 years of battery life. With 4 batteries, 8 to 10 years. An additional feature with this SL350QFR model, and really with all of our iSeries photo beams, we have environmental disqualification. We have a circuit, we call it DQ circuit. What this does is that when the weather is somewhat harsh, let's say too much rain or snow or foggy conditions for a period of 20 seconds or more, the photo beam will send a trouble alert back to the panel so that there's an awareness that those photo beams or sets of photo beams will be down until the weather clears up. All right, and here are some photos I want to show you of the 350 QFRI in the field. You see a solar farm there, an electrical substation, car dealership, truck, bus terminal, Primarily, these photo beams are used to protect perimeters, gates. I mentioned the application for warehouses just inside the overhead doors, so you don't need to put a sensor at each door. You can just have pairs of photo beams covering a very long extent, 700 feet with the 350 QFRI. And you see one photo there where it's mounted on a pad. That's typically how we mount it using our tower enclosures. That's what you're looking at, where we can install the beams into these enclosures. That conceals the beams, protects them, but it also makes it easy for mounting, as in the example there on the grass where it's freestanding. And that particular application, I believe, is a retirement community where they've had people trying to jump the wall and bothering the residents or committing thefts. The photo beams are placed, and even though in that photo it looks like it's sticking out, they're actually very nondescript and not noticeable because of that 350-foot distance. Someone walking into the area is not necessarily going to notice those photo beams or know what they are. All right, as we getting close to concluding our presentation here, I want to show you a device that's not a motion sensor. But what it does, this EN6080-OP is a very exciting product. It's an IP receiver, and it will receive up to 3,000 battery-powered and wireless perimeter devices or interior devices from either OPTEX or IndoorOutdoor. And it allows you to aggregate all of those devices, and this device sits on the network on a LAN and allows you to take those alarm inputs into a VMS, for example, like Milestone, and then we have a version for Genetec. So it's a very exciting product. Please consider it. Talk to your OPTEX rep about it. It's going to make your opportunities increase as an integrator, because now you can seamlessly and easily tie in those sensors. There is a casino operation somewhere in the country as a use case that is utilizing this to tie in wireless panic buttons, many of them, into their VMS. All right, well, that rounds it out for the product overview. Again, please contact your OPTEX regional sales manager for more information, or go to optexamerica.com if you're in the Americas. But I want to present one case study before we wrap up, and this is regarding an Atlanta suburban high school campus which was undergoing a complete remodel, transforming the whole high school. The problem they were having, though, is that they had HVAC units which were vulnerable and threats of vandalism and so forth. They had materials, raw materials that they were keeping at the construction site that were being stolen. So they were having all kinds of problems, as you can imagine, with a construction site and a project like this. This was a very long project, more than a year in the making. And they had some footage here of an individual climbing into an area where they have an HVAC unit. So they really researched, what can we do to protect this area? And they settled on the iSeries PIRs in particular to protect those HVAC units. They set up triggers around the perimeter using our iSeries PIRs to trigger strobe lights, alerting an on-site guard to the location of the breach. And what they loved about it was that the units can be relocated if needed at any time, with the changing conditions of the construction site as it progressed. And they focused on these two products in particular, the high mount HX and the BXS boundary sensor. The outcome was that the temporary campus is maintaining multiple secured zones and a secure perimeter. They've really been able to detect any intruders and prevent theft and vandalism, and very happy school administrators and district people as well as the students. So all good all the way around. And we have many more case studies on our website. But with that, I am going to wrap it up here, and thank you for your time, and now open it up for questions.